Hi and welcome to Mike's V8 Garage. This time I think it's long overdue that I introduce you to the third car in my garage and also explain why it's taken 5 months longer than planned to make this video in the first place. So over a year and a half ago now, I bought my third V8 car to add to the Mustang and the Jag I already had, but this one was intended to be a daily driver, and it was a 2007 Lexus GS430, which by some really spectacular man maths I'd worked out was actually economical enough to daily drive, if you added LPG to it. And the reason I went for a Lexus was, firstly, this is not my first foray into owning what is regarded as an old man's luxury barge, which seems to be a bit of a habit with me. I'd had a Lexus GS330 first generation a long time ago, which I basically bought to scavenge its alloys, which were the 18-inch sport alloys that were fitted to the Mark 1 GS300 Sports, because I wanted to fit them to my Supra. The intention was, I decided it was actually cheaper than getting a set of alloys, was to buy the car, put a standard set of alloys, which were worth nothing really, onto it, flog that on after cleaning it up and reap the balance of the difference. And effectively that's what I did, although in the process of cleaning that car up I actually got to quite like it, just from the sheer waftability of it, and was very tempted to keep it, but in the end it didn't justify. I didn't have space for another car, so off it went. But I did develop quite a liking for them, and that was realised about a year and a half later when I saw a little bit of a battered one up for sale, again a Mark 1 GS300, and it was only at about £200 on eBay at the time, and I thought, it'll never go for that. Put in a maximum bid of 350 quid, and then found out 10 minutes later that I'd won the thing. Luckily I've got a very understanding wife when it comes to cars, although that was almost the last straw, I think. She was not very happy with that one. But what I did do is get that thing and spend a good couple of months just putting it back together, repairing the damage, putting on replacement panels, rebuilding the door, and taking my first foray into simple bodywork and body replacement. So that was useful, and also it was very low cost because, as I said, the car had cost me nothing. The panels weren't that expensive, and it was just a good learner. But that got patched up, and similar to the first one, I didn't have a justification for a second car. This one wasn't in as good condition anyway, so that one got sold on. But the liking for Lexus continued, and therefore when I started thinking about what to replace my previous daily driver, a 2006 Honda Accord diesel, with, I decided why not, and as I said, the man maths bounced up, so the Lexus became mine. And the intention was, once I'd done the videos on the Jag and the initial video on the Mustang, I was going to shoot a video to introduce the Lexus. And to do that, at the start I shot a video to show the startup from the rear, which you can see now. And as you can see, that ain't good. Now I knew there was some leaks. It was a 15 odd year old car. There were some gaskets and seals that were definitely past their best, which is fine. I'd budgeted for that, and I'd got a new set of valve cover gaskets and also spark plug seals. The fact I'm shooting this video 6 months after I started and only about a month after I finished tells you that things didn't quite go to plan. But I'll leave that for the next few videos, and this is going to be a 3-part video to try and get everything in, even massively cut down. But we're now going to go to the initial work I conducted just to start getting those valve cover gaskets changed out. Enjoy. So looking at the engine, and what you can see is the valve covers down in there with the coil packs on them. And obviously being a V8, there's one on this side as well, although it's a little bit more hidden. So to get at those and get them out normally wouldn't be that much of a difficult job, I don't think. But what you do have is, and you can see them there, the injectors and the rails, or the fuel lines for the LPG system down this side, where access is reasonably tight because of the battery. And on this side, admittedly with the intake off, I've done that already and it's sat over there. But even when you expose the valve cover on this side, again you've got a large part of the LPG system, the filter, the main housing there, and again coolant lines and injectors all potentially sat in the way. So although it's just a set of 10mm bolts, 18 in total, 9 per cover, it's probably going to be fairly complex to get all that out of the way. So in terms of oil getting into the combustion chamber and creating smoke out the back, I'd say that's fairly conclusive. That is absolutely slathered in oil. A fit of curiosity and a bit of suspicion, I also took the end cap off for the timing chain, and as you can see there's a lot of oil on what should be the sealing surface of the gasket. And again, this gasket is actually breaking up as well, so looks like I'm going to have to order one of those as well. So at this stage everything was going fine, the valve covers were off, and you can see the valve covers that are taken off, especially on the right hand side bank. It was in really good condition, and the same is matched up by the condition of the cams and just the inside of the cylinder head. It was all nice and golden colour. The car was obviously in reasonable nick in that sense. It had been well looked after and there was no obvious wear anywhere and everything looked quite good. The other side was quite a bit dirtier, and I wondered a lot at the time and for quite a while why that was, because it was noticeably dirtier on both the cams, the faces, the surface of the head, and also the valve cover. There was a lot of crud in there, and what it turned out later to be, I found out, was the PCV system, and this isn't unknown, but at the time it puzzled me quite a lot. But as I said, everything looked pretty decent, so I then started getting cracking on replacing all of the valve cover gaskets and the spark plug seals. Right, so I'm just about to clean up and replace all the spark plug seals and clean up the valve covers at the same time. As I said, interestingly, the passenger side bank is noticeably dirtier than the driver's. As I said, all the camshafts look okay, but hey hoy. What I would say is that removing the spark plug seals when they're absolutely rock solid compared to their replacements is a flipping epic. You can see the 4 tabs that hold the seal in place, so you have to carefully pry them back, which feels extremely uncomfortable, I must admit, and then hammer a screwdriver or something similar down the side of the old one, which again feels fairly uncomfortable, and then very carefully lever it out without bending too much that plate there. Like I said, I've got one done, I know how to do it now, so I'll be able to do it a lot more efficiently for the others. But flipping heck, those things were rock solid. So between the gaskets, which were quite bad, the seals on the bolts, which were absolutely rock solid, and these spark plug seals, yeah, I'm not surprised this thing was leaking oil. And a lot easier than I thought. That's 8 spark plug seals that are well and truly goosed out. So what I need to do now is clean all this up. Right, so first valve cover is now clean, the other one's got to be done in a second, but in the meantime I wanted to make sure I get the seals in right. You see, I've done a couple already just to get the hang of it, but they're pretty simple affairs. The one thing to note is they are directional, so there's a slight taper to them, and obviously that's designed to go down the spark plug tube, so that needs to be installed facing upwards or down if the valve cover was the other way around. So installation is pretty simple. All the tabs are bent out of the way. What I've done is just made sure I get them fully out of the way so they don't potentially rip or tear the new seal going in, the new gasket going in. And I've obviously cleaned up all the mounting points and all the rest of it. And then taking a little bit of red rubber grease, and that's just to ease it in. Again, I don't want to risk damaging these on install, because if I do, then fundamentally I'm just adding a fresh oil leak rather than trying to cure one. So, check orientation. That then should just slide in. If it doesn't, a little bit more bending rather than trying to force it. Again, don't want to rip these. And it should just slot roughly into place. Now what I need to do is get it flush with the very bottom of that mounting point. So a 32mm socket, which I just happen to have, fits nicely over the edge of the seal, and a couple of taps of the mallet, and that should be in there. And you can check if I can see any gap on the top, from the top rather, between the rubber lip of the seal and the bottom, then I know it's not in. But that one, nice and sorted all round, and then all I need to do is get the tabs back into place. In this case I've got the end of a socket set, a socket extension bar rather, and you just gently tap those tangs back into place. Not a need for massive force on this. They're very much able to go back in there quite easily. And as you can see there, seals in place, taper in the correct direction to accept the spark plug tube, tangs back in place, all sorted and done. And that is one valve cover done. Happy with that. So what I'm now doing is fitting the gaskets, and the key thing with that is to get them lined up as best you can initially, and then never push along the gasket because you'll end up with a load of excess. What you're trying to do is push down just to seat the gasket in position, and that should mean that you get it nice and flush. So valve cover gasket, or rocker cover gasket, new spark plug seals, nice and clean, ready to go. Now I just need to do it all over again, starting with cleaning this horrible bit of kit. So yeah, slight difference before and after. And just like that, the last one's done. So, seals in, gaskets in, all the spark plug seals are in, and it's cleaned up fairly nicely. Like I said, I'm not going for immaculate, but I wanted to get a lot of that sludge off of there, and that's what we've managed to do. So, all good. And that is now two valve covers ready to go back on. So at this point, this was just when I thought I was ready to start putting the valve covers back on. But then I started looking at the way the oil was leaking, where the oil was leaking. All the oil that's in there and under there did not come from up there. I think the problem lies behind this, which is obviously the VVTI unit on the camshaft, and I think I've got a leaking cam seal, at least on this side. I've got the other side off as well, but it's looking pretty dry. There's nothing really down there. But when you look at this side, and again I'll get a torch in there and just try and illustrate it, there is a lot of oil. And when you look further down as well, There's a lot of oil down there further. Now the alternator's not in there because I've taken it out because it was absolutely heaving. More on that later. But if I actually go underneath the car now, you can see all over the bottom of the power steering rack. Wet that side, dry that side. So it's not a, well, it doesn't look like a leak anyway. Albeit I want to have a look at the gaiters a little bit. But you look at the loom there, the underside of that bit of the wiring loom, all underneath the oil pan. There's oil all over there, and I think that's come down from the cam. Certainly when you look up there, I'm trying to control fingers and torches and cameras and so on, but there's a lot of stuff that originates from there. So the intent is now to do the cam seals, and while I'm at it, the VVTi seals as well. But first, having given the alternator a clean already, I now need to get all this oil off as well and get that done. So might as well get to that. So the end of this first video takes us up to the last video I ever put on YouTube, which was explaining why I had not done anything for so long. And it was mainly because, as I said, the simple job of doing the valve covers had now turned into, actually I'm going to have to take the camshafts out to do the cam seals and also the VVT seals as well, because I knew they could be done. I'd done a lot of research. But that was a fairly involved job, and it was certainly something more mechanically complex than I'd ever done before or even attempted to do. So I approached it with a slight degree of trepidation, but you know, I watched the videos, I read through the manuals and thought, this should be okay, let's get to it. And the next video in this series will be me doing exactly that. So if you want to see that second video and find out also what ended up happening, please like, subscribe, and also feel free to comment down below, and hope to see you next time.